Right, that's what I call federal by.
I do a lot, I mean, it was in the second, but, you know what I mean?
Right, yeah,
I felt bad for the father,
yeah.
but not really, we would have gone.
That's right.
No matter what. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just feel bad, for we were trying to. learn.
Thank you very much. Stop.
A little after 2 o'clock. How about you guys? Yes. Well, hello, fellow Williams chat north. How's everybody doing today? Good? Good. All right. Listen, we got, as last time, we got a lot of content to cover, and we had one or two choices last time. It was go through it 90 miles an hour and understand like 5% of it, or take our time and actually unpack it and lead with actionable steps. And I wanted the latter. And the same thing is going to happen today. We're going to go through, we're going to slow it down a little bit. Yes, it's still a lot of information. And this is one of those you probably won't hear one time and digest everything. So deep breath, you have a handout. We're going to send out the slides, and there's a recording. So go back and watch it 3 or 4 times. And if you missed part 1 or part of part 1, or if you end up having to step out of part 2, we're doing the next one at North Atlanta. The first steps, I think on the 13th or 14th of June. And we'll do the second one, I think on the 20 something. Keep your eye out. I'll send an email so you guys have to make it. Okay. Here's one thing that's important. Education without implementation is just what?
Entertainment.
Entertainment. You guys didn't come here to be entertained. You came here to find something to try yourself forward and create wealth. I've got a ton of books up here, and at the end of the day, if you guys can pass it, give a business card or something for it, I'm gonna do a couple of drawings. I'm gonna give away some books. Some of these I can't give away, these are like my only copies, but a lot of them I can. And I want you to take the ones I can't give away, I will. I want you to come up here before you leave today and take a picture of some of these books. And I'll share with you, this is how I read a book. These that one's got like little tabs in it and highlights and where I've gone through and like that's how you learn, is taking it like that. And I didn't look through it one time. All of these I looked through 5, 10, 15 times. That make sense? Okay. All right. So just saying, I'm not your financial advisor. Okay, so go talk to your financial advisor. Some guy that's done a lot of this. I'm sharing my personal experiences, the mistakes I've made, the wins I've made, and trust that you guys will also do some homework to find out what model makes the most sense for you. So what we covered in part 1. If you weren't here last time, like I said, we'll do it Halloween North Atlanta next, I think on the 13th or 14th. Look at your page that you have your hand out. If you grab that, grab these actually. There we go. Okay. We covered most of the stuff on the first page last time. We covered why we're here today. Why is financial freedom important to you? We talked about a life by design. What is your life? You wake up every day, you're excited. What does your life look like? If money was no object, meaning you had enough passive income to live your life by design every day, such that you got to wake up and do what you wanted, what would that life look like? We calculated your freedom number last time. What is the amount of money you need every month to live your life by design? And we figured out the additional passive income. In other words, what do you have now? What's the gap? And how much time do we have to close that gap? For some of you, it was a good bit of time. For others, it's I've only got a few years. I want to be able to step out and be able to work with my passive income, supporting my lifestyle. Okay, the back side of the page is what we didn't necessarily finish. What investment vehicles? How much capital will you need? How many additional sales to do that? What's another way to get that capital? There's a lot of stuff that we didn't cover last time that we will today. So we went through all of this stuff last time. Okay, what we're going to cover today. We left off with this method, and I want to cover it one more time just so you guys understand the BRRRR method to flip and how to use those to fund your long-term investments. We're going to talk about understanding the foreclosure process. Most people, raise your hand if you've been in this room more than 5 years. Okay, how about more than 10 years? More than 15? Okay, so here's what happened. Back in most of this room wasn't in the market in 05, 06, 07. You had a couple, Enrique and a couple others. We had a big wave of foreclosures that happened in 08, a big wave. And there's a difference between a short sale There's a difference between an REO, a bank-owned property. There's differences in all of these different types of properties that we need to understand. So we're gonna talk about those, how to identify them, what to look out for, how to purchase them. You'll leave with a better, deeper understanding of what those are and how you could possibly pick one up, okay? There's short sales, auction properties, foreclosures, REOs, talk about that. Notice of default, what are those? How do those get, when do those happen? You know, what can you do with those? Where do I find investment properties? That's what we're gonna cover today. Where do I find these properties? And how do I fund them? Where do I get the financing to fund these properties? We'll talk about the biggest mistakes that flippers make. And we're gonna take action on your long-term wealth strategy. Make sense? You guys ready to get started? Can't do it. Let's jump in. Okay, remember, pick one thing. You're gonna hear a whole lot of stuff today. All I'd ask of you is pick one thing that you're gonna put in place later today. Write down all of your notes and just circle one. You may have 5 that you want to take action on. Pick one of them to take action on now, okay? All right. All right, you've already looked at the handout. Okay, I asked this last time. There's 3 slides I'm gonna put on here that were here last time. We're gonna jump into new content. If tomorrow you woke up and the income from selling real estate was gone, what would happen to your current lifestyle? Most people in the room, it would change, if not significantly, it would change, right? And hey, will you pass one more of those handouts back, Alan, please? When was the last realtor retirement party you went to? Thank you. I showed this last time, I kind of laughed, you know, it's not really that funny, because I've been in the business since 05. I've never been to a realtor retirement party. Here's why. This is one of those businesses where the second you pull a sign out of the yard, it's typically the second rental service, right? And most of us are in the business of real estate, yet we aren't investing in the business that we know better than the other, right? So why not? What's causing us not to? All this lack of understanding of how to get started and what mistakes to make. So we're going to talk about this, and that's why we're here today. Your passive income, how to create passive income through real estate. Okay, what's the most valuable asset we have? Time. The one thing we'll never get back. No amount of money ever bought a second of time. When you start, vision. Okay, living your life by design. All right, so let's jump into some stuff today. Okay, BRRRR method. So this is what this looks like: buy, remodel, rent, refinance, repeat. I gave the example last time for an agent in one of our sister offices, and this is the common misconception that there are no deals right now. That is not the case. Every single week, I'm getting calls from agents, your fellow agents in our sister GLG offices, with the transactions they're doing. I'll give you an example. Mike, you know this name, Dustin Kimberly, right? He's got one to make $90,000. He just picked up last week, right? How another agent in one of our offices called him and said, hey, there's this great property, may make sense for you. He picked it up. 2 weeks ago, I met with an agent named Tara out of the Roswell office. A property picking up for $235. This would be worth $350-ish when it's all said and done, right? 1 week before that, Quinning, you guys know Quinning, she's out of the Alpharetta office. She found one that was going to get purchase price around $850-ish, is going to sell for about 1.4. You know what I mean? Like, these deals are out there. We just need to know how to find them. Okay. And by the way, spoiler alert, one of the biggest mistakes that I made in flipping properties, I kept a handful of them. I wish I would have kept one. That's one of the biggest mistakes I made, is not keeping more of them. I was going for the big hit right now, the income, and not looking at postponing my current lifestyle just a couple years to be able to live freely for the rest of my life. You see what I mean? So I'm on this journey again with you. I will share that I am very blessed to be at a place right now where I have enough passive income to live my life by design. That was not the case 5 years ago. And I'll give you that story how we got there. Okay. And I want you guys to avoid the mistakes that I made. So I'll hopefully share them. Okay. All right, so this is what the BRRRR method looks like. So what's the first step on there? Okay, let's run these numbers, okay? So let's say we'll use that property that Tara had as an example. She's gonna buy it for $235,000. Okay, what's the second step? Remodel. That one didn't need a whole lot of work to do it. She had estimates, and it was only like 25 grand, let's say 30 grand, okay? So $30,000 to do the remodel. Okay. So right now, before we do anything, what's the total amount of money that she has in the property? Okay. All in, like total amount of money, $265,000 all in. Okay, what's the next step? Rent it. This property was going to rent for about $2,500 per month ish, give or take. Okay. All right, and then what's the next step? Refi. Okay, this is what I want you guys to pay attention to. Where did I say the property's gonna be worth once it's fixed up?
350.
350-ish, okay? So if the after repair value, which is called ARV, is $350,000. Okay, and she has 265 in it. About how much equity does she have in the house? It's about $85,000, right? Now, the challenge is if she sold it right now, she triggers a taxable event. True? Yes or yes? Right? So she has an option. She may be okay with that, okay? It's the same thing as your income you're earning right now, you pay taxes on that. She may be okay with that. This could be somebody's complete business model. And if I'm being open with you, in 2011, 12, I got really, can I speak freely in this room? Okay, yes, okay. Being an agent, it's an emotional roller coaster with your clients, right? And I'm the type of person that cares so much about my people having an excellent experience that I take whatever weight they have on my shoulders. And it'll, like, you might be saying to your client, everything's gonna be fine, I got you. Then you get off the phone, you're freaking out. You're like, how are we gonna solve this problem? You do. And when you multiply that times multiple clients, it can wear on you. It can wear on you emotionally. And it got to a point where my phone would ring, and I feel bad saying this out loud. I was grateful my phone was ringing. I was also resentful. You know, I was like, another call. Do I really want another deal? And I felt bad feeling like that. I was like, okay, what would be my ideal life? I was like, you know what? I've been flipping 1 or 2 properties a year just on the side. What if I did this full time? What if I just did this full time? And so I was like, okay, I'll start doing this full time. So I had enough capital to start doing 2 or 3 at a time. If you turn them every 90 days or 120 days, that's, 6 to 8 a year, right? And if you're making, let's say 50 on each property, 6 to 8 a year, that's a good income. And here's the good news. You don't have to deal with, if you're on vacation as an agent and the closing's happening on Monday and something's going sideways, they don't care if you're on vacation. They're calling and they expect you to answer. But now I'm my own client. If I want to delay putting it on the market, I delay. If I need to negotiate repairs, I'm negotiating with really myself. Do I want to do the repairs or not? If I need to do a price adjustment because I was too aggressive on the price, I can adjust the price. Like the stress was legitimately gone. It was just me dealing with myself now. The only stress I had to deal with other agents, which I was okay with, right? Does that make sense? Okay. All right. So back into this, right? The ARV is worth $350,000. So she has a choice to make. So if she chose to keep it as a long-term rental, you put a renter in there. Okay. She has a total of 265 in the property. Okay. All right. You can do something called a cash out refi. Cash out refi. Okay. We write this down. Cash out refi. Cash out refi. Here's the word I want you to write down, and I want you to avoid. Title seasoning. Write down the word title seasoning. Okay. This is what title seasoning is. If you're getting a loan on a rental property, what percent loan to value will they give you? How much of the property worth do they typically give you? 80, 75 to 80. You get a better interest rate if you do 75%, right? Because you're putting down more money, but they will absolutely do 80%. Okay. So here's where I need your math skills. Okay, who's a calculator? You know a calculator? You need a calculator handy. What if she's going to do a cash out refi right now, and they're going to give her 80% of what the property is worth? What is $350,000 times 0.8? 280? 280? Okay. What is it times 0.75? If you want to get a better answer. 260. How much? 262. 262. How much is he at it? 260. You see the math here? Okay, so here's what happens. In order to do, essentially, if she did 80% loan to value and was okay paying a little bit higher interest rate, what was that 80% of the 350 is 280. She only has 265 in it. They're handing her a check at the closing table for $15,000. She just got paid $15,000 to buy an asset that pays her $2,500 a month. Her payment's about $2,200. What's the return? If you get paid $15,000, what's your return on investment? There's a trick question. You can't calculate it. It's infinite, right? You have 0 in the deal, and you're making a return on it. It's an infinite return on investment. You see what I mean? Like you have 0. Okay. Well, I guess you could argue that. You say, well, she had a little bit of money in it for a short period of time, right? But essentially, she's getting paid. Or if it was her, I would say do the 75% loan to value. Get back everything but $3,000 of what I have in it. Have a lower monthly payment and cash flow more money out of her forever. You guys follow that? Here's the challenge you're gonna have when you do this cash out refi. A lot of the big banks, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Chase, all the big ones, they're gonna require title seasoning. That means they want you to have owned the property for a year before they will look at what you have in it. Instead, before they look at what it's worth.
Yeah.
Okay, and what they're gonna say is they're gonna say, how long have you owned it? You're like 60 days. And they're gonna be like, okay, we haven't owned it long enough for us to go off appraised value, we're gonna have to go off what you have in it. Well, if they only gave us 80% of what we have in it, now we have 50 grand tied up in the property. Do you guys follow that?
Yeah.
So far, that makes sense? Here's how you get around it, really, is what you do for everybody. What you do is you find a local community bank. The community banks don't have all the red tape. Those still give you the same interest rate you'll get at all the big boys. They want your business. They don't have, I'll give you one that I use, Providence Bank. I don't have any ties to them. In fact, the guy that I used to work with, Andy Jordan's not there anymore. He retired, but I know they do these deals. Well, they also did funding for flips. I have 4 or 5 going at once. I'd be a little short on cash on one of them, and I go there. They weren't charging me like, 13% APR and 2 points closing. They were really reasonable. But I had some equity in the property and was doing business. But find a local community bank. Providence Bank is in Alpharetta, on the corner of Windward Parkway and Alpharetta Highway. Providence. But really go to any community bank. Go develop a relationship with them. And that's how you can avoid the title season. Yeah.
This is literally what we're doing right now, because I have a flip property right now, and we would love to be able to hold it and rent it, but we need to get the money out of it.
Yeah.
And so this is literally what, and then I think there was some other way of like creating like an LLC or something, a separate thing
Yeah.
to be able to buy it.
Get creative.
I
Yeah,
can't
maybe.
remember, some wackadoodle thing
The
that.
only thing that gets you in trouble.
No, it wasn't anything like that. It was their tax person.
Got it, okay.
telling us
Got it.
this. I don't remember exactly because my husband deals with that part of it.
Got it.
But anyway, so this is really helpful.
This could be a title season. You want to avoid title seasoning. That's how you do it, okay? So now, if you do this the right way, what's the last R?
Repeat.
I mean, how many times would you like to do this? As many times as possible. If essentially you have next to nothing in the deal or zero in the deal, it's cash flowing you $300, $400, $500 per month. How many of those do you want to stack up? As many as you possibly can, right? Okay, and here's another question. If you wanted to buy, let's say, $350,000, and this property is worth $350 now. If you wanted to buy $350,000 worth of stocks, how much money would you have to pay to get $350,000 worth of stocks? Okay, how much did you just pay for this?
Whatever your.
Essentially zero. Like even if you bought it in a traditional manner and you put down, let's say you need a total of 265, in it, and you put down 80% of that, that's 50 grand. You put down 80 on an asset that's worth now 350, it's going up per year based on 350. Don't look at the past 2 years, the crazy increase on prices. Let's say the traditional average is 5% per year. If it goes to, what's 5% of $350,000? 17,000. Okay, so let's say you only have 50,000 in it, and it's going up 17,000 per year. What's that return?
Right.
That's a pretty darn good return. That's a 30% return.
Yeah.
That's a really good return, but that's not the only benefit. What are the other benefits of owning this property? Well, the government, what's that mean?
Well, the rent too.
You get cash flow on the rent. Let's say it's cash flowing $300 a month. That's another $3,600 a year, right? So you add that to it. Now your return's better than that. What's another benefit of owning real estate? Taxes. If you have a $350,000 property, okay, and they say that they do a depreciation schedule, even though the homes don't depreciate, the government wants to encourage us to buy homes to provide housing, right? So here's what this looks like. Let's say that the house is worth $350,000, okay? And let's say that 80 of that is the land value. You guys follow me so far? Okay, so how much is the house itself worth? $270,000, right? The way that you do this, it's on a 27.5-year, let's just say 27-year depreciation schedule. So 27-year depreciation, what does that give us? How much are we able to write off per year? 10,000. Okay, so what this means is every $350,000 house that you buy, okay, you're going to get the equivalent of a $10,000 write-off. Okay, what does this mean? What does this mean? Let's say that you own 10 properties. You did the burn method, you had 10.
Yeah.
Okay, that means you're able to write off $100,000 a year. Okay, now let's say you made $100,000 a year at your day job. How much you pay in taxes? You get it? That's how that works. Okay, make sense? Okay, there's more benefits too. I just don't want to get overly complicated with it. Were those 2 or 3 pretty easy to follow along with?
Yes.
You guys get that? Okay. All right. There's more than that, but that starts it. Yeah, here's the other thing we didn't talk about, debt pay down, right? You're also paying down the debt on this asset. So, right, yes.
So going back to the loan, I was looking at something called debt service ratio.
Yeah.
Would that be the same type of refinance that we're looking here, or is that a completely different business?
The debt service, I don't look a lot at the debt service ratio. Yeah, I think that's more on the lending side. I actually don't know a lot about that. I know what that term is. I don't really remember the ins and outs of it. And that's what I'll tell you, like, I don't know everything. I know enough to do what I need to do in here and to get benefits from it. There's some parts of the mortgage side I don't know, right? So that would be a good thing to look into.
And so this is the cash out refi versus home equity line of credit, correct?
Right. So here's what some people will do. A lot of us have, and this is, you have to be stood. I'm about to tell you a strategy to get some capital to you. This makes me really nervous to talk about out loud, okay? I'm really nervous. Do not use your homes as piggy banks, right? Don't use them as ATM machines, right? The smart investor that has willpower, what they will do, a lot of people have some massive equity in their homes right now, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Rather than going to have to get a loan, a hard money loan on this, they know they need $265,000 all in. Are there a lot of people that have that much equity in their house right now? If they own it for 2 years, yes. Are there banks out there that will do 90, 95, 100% home equity? Yes, absolutely. Synovus is one of them. A Legacy is another one. I know of a handful that will do it, right? So what some people do that have willpower, right? They will open up a line of credit on their home. They won't put their vacations and cars and stuff like that. They won't put their credit cards on it. That, you know what I mean? Like, we've got to be really careful with this. All they would use it for is to acquire this for a short period of time and then do the cash out refund. Does that make sense?
That's what we just did.
Okay, good. And it makes me so nervous to say that out loud, because some people will like, they'll do it a couple times, like, you just throw this vacation on there, you know? Next thing you know, 50, 60, 100 grand of stuff on, you know? So be careful with it. Yeah.
Aubrey, the one I struggle with is cost segregation. Can you,
Yes, that's another benefit. So that's why when we go down the rabbit hole, a lot of stuff, the cost segregation, which is what Brett Tanner mentioned at the event, you can choose, and it's separate than this depreciation. There's another piece you can do for cost segregation. You can get let me give you an example. Andy and Leslie saved, if I remember correctly, $84,000 in taxes that were good. I may be off by $5,000 or $10,000 last year by buying a rental property and doing it, or 2 years ago and doing the cost segregation. What it is you're able to accelerate the one of the tax benefits in 1 year. Okay, so essentially you might have owed $80,000. Now you don't owe anything. What's the challenge with that? Well, it would have to be part of that would have to be reclaimed when it's sold.
Right.
Okay, well, what if you never intend? Let's say you were building up this portfolio of rentals.
And you never intend to.
You never intend to sell them. 1031 exchange them. And in fact, don't sell them when you pass away. Have it set up big enough where you can make a financial. The name of this class is creating financial freedom and generational wealth. Create something that gives them generational wealth for forever. 1031 exchange these properties into another property, into another property, into another property, right? Here's one strategy that some people do. It has to be like kind. I'm kind of chasing a squirrel here. I hope we get all the materials. It's helpful. It's okay. What you guys are asking, right? So you'll 1031 exchange these single family residences into maybe a multifamily or something. You can do different, as long as they're rental properties, they'll let you. Brett even did it into, I don't know how he did this, like a oil refinery or something, but it's supposed to be light properties. What a lot of people do is they'll roll into light properties, and then roll into something that they can live in for 2 years. It's still a rental property. Think like a bed and breakfast that's worth millions and millions of dollars. They'll then live in it for a few years, and then they get the benefit. If they wanted to sell it, they could. But why would you? If you needed some capital to go buy more, you could do this same strategy and just do it again. This is where my mind is at. Keep them. Keep them for your kids, keep them for your grandkids, keep them for your grandkids' kids, right? Have this going for forever. Does that make sense? Have something in your will that says if they sell them, they can't sell them to cash out. They have to roll it into another property. You see what I mean? Okay. Does that make sense?
yes,
Okay. All right. So that's the Burr method on investing. Okay. All right, so. real quick. This is something I want you guys all to download if you haven't already, not download, but go into your podcast. I know it's kind of hard to see from the back in the back, but there's a podcast called Bigger Pockets, Bigger Pockets. It's a absolutely phenomenal podcast. They interview somebody every single week, and somebody that says, I went from zero to, $50,000 a month in passive income in 3 years. How'd you do it? Like, you can look at these. It says making $200,000 a year, just 3 years, with a high cash flow strategy, goes Brittany Swade. Like, every single week, they have something that you can invest in. Like, they're explaining how they did it. And this isn't somebody that read something in a book. These are people actually doing a very specific strategy. Did Mark come yet? Ellsworth? I know you're setting up the date. Do we have a date set up yet or not yet? Okay, write this name down because he's gonna be coming here. Mark Ellsworth. Mark Ellsworth. Keep your name up for when a calendar event comes out for Mark Ellsworth. Here's why. I mentioned this last time. He took one single family residence. Now he is 1031 that, exchanged that. I'll explain how he did it. He makes over $30,000 a month of passive income. It all happened in the last 5 years, a month, from one single family residence. What did he do? He took this property, he then rolled it into the 1-story commercial buildings that have like doctor's office, chiropractor, dentist, whatever else, the 1-story ones. He bought like a mom and pop brand type shop, right? He rolled that money, he had a couple thousand, $100,000 of equity in it. He rolled that into his down payment for this 1 point whatever, a rental property. The way commercial works is different than residential. Residential, the appraised value is determined by other sales. Commercial is determined by the multiple of the rental rate. So he went in, fixed this property up, raised the rental rates, then went to the bank. Now the property is worth double, triple, quadruple what he bought it for. He then said, hey, I want to pull some of the cash out. He pulled out the cash he had in it. He still kept the property as a rental. Went to the next $1.52 million single story thing. Did it again. He now owns 5, right? And they each cash flow about $10,000 a month, approximately, in cash flow, right? I'm sorry, about $7,000 a month, making a little over 30. That's awesome. He's gonna be sharing how I did it. Would you guys like to hear that story? Be here for that. Your peers are doing it right now, and you have a choice to make. You can have 1 year of experience 20 times, or you can have 20 years of experience and maybe make that in investing and becoming and becoming financially free. Yeah,
It'll be your June 21st.
there you go. Write it down, June 21st. Do we know what time? Probably not yet.
I'm sorry,
Not yet. Okay. Just earmark that day. Be here for that.
What's his name?
Mark Ellsworth. Mark Ellsworth. He's one of our system officers. He'll share it for you. Okay, so flip to fund your long-term properties. Okay, what does this look like? Okay, 5 biggest mistakes flippers make and how to avoid them. Number 1 is they get this wrong. If you look at this after repair value, this ARV, we're like, oh, it's gonna be worth $350. Well, what if they were really wrong on that and it was only worth, $290? Now, if they're getting 80% loan to value, they're only gonna get lent $260. Now they have $15,000 out of the deal. You see what I mean? They have to go get all of their cash back. Where could this be a problem? What if they got a hard money loan?
Yeah.
And they were paying a significant amount of money every single month for this property? You see what I mean? And they couldn't cash flow all of it. They couldn't cash out and pay that all back. Now they're in trouble. Do you see what I mean? We've got to nail the ARV. How could you make sure that your ARV is accurate? 70%. You use 70% rule. Absolutely. Like, be more conservative on your numbers up front. Could you ask somebody else that maybe knows this stuff? Right? So maybe somebody in the office that's a very seasoned listing agent, because honestly, for a while, we've been able to pick a number, throw it on the wall for the past 2 or 3 years, and it's worked. We're entering a market that's a little more difficult, and this market's crazy right now. I know we still have a shortage of inventory, but we got to be careful. We can be really careful. Anything could change in 90 days, 120 days in that time period. Make sense? Here's the good news. I want you guys not to worry too much. A house won't go from $350,000 to $250,000 in value overnight. That doesn't happen. Even in the crash, right? It took properties a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years to reach the bottom before they started coming back up. Now, prices did fall fast, but if you have it and you can price it right and you get rid of a home in 60, 90 days, it's not gonna drop 100 grand in 90 days, right? It might drop 10 or 15 if the market really crashed, right? It's not gonna drop 100. If it was gonna go down 120,000 in a year, how much is that a month? 10,000 a month, right? So if you would hurry your butt up and get the thing sold, you know, and you might have, let's say 60 days, right? So if I go down 20, you can still make these numbers work. You see what I mean? So time absolutely matters, but get your ARV right. It has to be right. And do a conservative number. Find somebody that knows listings, that really understands them to help you with it. Underestimating expenses. I can't tell you how often that's happened. There's a great book on this. The book on estimated rehab costs. Okay, like I knew exactly what it cost me per yard per carpet, what it cost per square foot. I still know. So to lay it down on the floor versus on the wall, I knew what I was paying for tile, for light fixtures. I created a spreadsheet. After the first couple of flips that I did, I created a spreadsheet, right, for every property, and not every property, for me to use for all properties. And I was like, what look am I looking for? Is it a farmhouse house feel? Is it a modern feel? So I had one or two little tabs at the bottom. And let's say it was you know, whatever, pick tradition. And it just had all of the SKU numbers for everything that I bought. Everything, the light fixtures, the doorknobs, the hinges, you know, the paint. I would take my little laser thing and walk around the house and measure the homes, how many square feet it was, right? I could literally go home, spend 3 hours, calculate everything up, plug it in the spreadsheet, there's my price, right? I knew what I was gonna spend on expenses. Side note, you can do something at Lowe's and Home Depot. They call them, I always get it backwards, but bid room, what's called bid room. Yeah, and you get, yeah, you get a discount as a contractor. So you can open up an LLC and you say, I'm a contractor, right? And I flip properties, you know, I do investment homes, I'm a renters, you know, and then you can go to the contractor side at Home Depot or Lowe's and get better deals. And buy everything there, but like carpet, I got a place up in Dalton. I got my like wood and stuff from Loomis, I was going to pronounce it, building supply, but I had accounts with all of them. I went to PPG and still have accounts with them, PPG and Sherwin-Williams, almost 50% off the pay, 50, right? So you need to go ahead of time and have conversations, you know, with negotiating your deal, you can make a lot of your profit there, right? Make sense? So have these start build the first one, you're kind of doing it, write down all the stuff you buy, right? And that way you're doing it anyway, go ahead and create the spreadsheet. That way next time when you're walking a house, you literally just walk around and count the fans with the bowling blades. and light fixtures and doorknobs and hinges and everything else, right? Yeah, sorry, Mike, I spoken at you. Love you, and you get accurate expenses. That's what I want, accurate expenses. How else would you, okay, what about labor? How would you actually know what the labor is gonna cost? Have them walk with you.
Right.
Like take them with you to this property, especially your first few properties, have them walk that home with you and show them everything. I mean, walk around the entire property, talk about everything you want done, write it all down and have the accurate price. And don't just get one, get a few. Make sense? So underestimate expenses is the next big one. Here's another one, no scope of work. Another big mistake that people make is no scope of work. Let me explain what this means. My first few flips, I've done 43 of them in the course of probably, almost all of them in the course of probably 4 years. The first few, I walked with a contractor, here's what I want done. And he gave me a price, right? The scope of work, what I learned, is broken down every room exactly what I want. Because they'll come back and be like, well, you didn't tell me that you wanted me to do that, you know? You didn't tell me that we were gonna do this part, like that wasn't mentioned, like, yes, it was, and I know it wasn't. Scope of work, every single room. I had it broken down, kitchen, remove all old cabinets, right? Move faucet from this spot 10 feet to this spot, right? It had install, you know, 5, 6, you know, recessed lights, you know, and all the stuff that you're gonna do that, install new cabinets, install new backsplash, you know, connect the plumbing after the granite guy, put the granite in, right? Or pouring or, you know, quartz or whatever you're doing, right? It had everything in there. Every little thing you can think of was broken down per room. Master bathroom, what are you doing? Right? Master bedroom, what are you doing? Every room was broken down so it was really clear on exactly what they were doing. Does that make sense? Okay. And here's the other part of this. This is really important. This is a really frustrating piece that I learned today. Who's done a flip before? Raise your hand. Okay, so we have experienced people here. You probably had this happen. I show up to the property and nobody's there. So call the guys. Hey guys, I'm at the property. Where you at? Like, oh wait, this other emergency pop up. We're gonna be there tomorrow. Like, okay, no problem. So come back tomorrow. Go around. Get there. Hey guys, where you at? They're like, oh, the job ran a little bit long. I promise we'll be there tomorrow. right? You realize every day that goes by is costing you money, right? Even if you paid cash for a property, you just had cash there, you just paid cash for that, right? You're still paying prorated taxes. Vacant insurance policies are not cheap. They're not the same as your regular insurance policies, right? You're paying prorated HOA dues, you're paying utilities to have it on. Every single thing legitimately costs you money. So here's why I started writing it in the bottom of the scope of work. I wrote in there that, and I would ask the contractor, I would say, hey, here's everything we need to be done. We've negotiated the price. We're good. How much time was it? What can you commit to getting it done? What date? You're like, oh, 30 days. I'm like, okay, today's May 22nd, so you can do it by June 22nd, right? It's like, yeah. I'm like, okay. So I take I'm like, that sounds great. And in here, it says, this property must be completed by May 22nd. Every day that the contractor sends past that, then what they're being paid gets reduced by $5. And then he's also like, whoa, wait. I might need an extra week to get it done. I was like, okay, so, June 29th. You have it done by June 29th? June 29th. Okay. So we write down June 29th. The next line down is it says, every day that the two contractors must be here at least 5 days a week. Hopefully more, right? But at least 2 people are showing up working on this property every single day. I don't want to show up for more than 2 days and there not be somebody here. Now you could exclude that second one that I just mentioned to you. If you have the first one, don't miss the first one. Okay, absolutely do the first one. Okay, now here's where you're gonna get bit, is you'll be in the middle of construction. And they're starting to put things together. We need to change that. You know, now you've changed the scope of work. Now as contractors say, well, it's not the same scope of work anymore. It took too long. Okay, let me ask you a question. As a real estate agent, if you're gonna change something in the contract, what do you type up?
Put it in writing.
An amendment. But it's the same stinking thing. An amendment to your scope of work. And says, you'll ask and say, okay, how much more time do you need to do this? Since we're changing this, they'll say, I need 5 more days. Okay. So rather than the 29th, you're gonna be done on July 4th, right? Oh, it's a holiday, July 5th. Okay, July 5th, you'll be done by July 5th, right? Okay, amendment. All parties agree this property be done by July 5th. Should property not be done by July 5th, contractor agrees that what they're getting paid will be reduced by $500 every single day. You follow me?
Yeah.
How you protect yourself, and this is coming from pain that I'm saying this, okay? Yes. Okay, here's another one. Do not pay this contractor all of their money before they're done. I don't care what they say, right? In my agreement, it said I will pay them in direct proportion to the amount of work that's been completed. Now, you might say, well, what about materials? I actually bought all the materials myself. These companies will deliver it for you. Like Home Depot, Lowe's, Loomis, all those for $100, $150, they'll drop it off for you in the driveway. So you can go buy, order the materials, right? They will drop them off for $100, $150. That way you save yourself cost and markup, because what a lot of the contractors will do is they'll mark it up 15, 20%, right? Now I get it. If they're having to go to buy it, I get it, right? Now make your own decisions. If you want them to handle everything, maybe in your first flip, you want it to be easier, that's fine. Make your own decision. Just know you're paying for it. Does that make sense? Okay. A lot of their margin is that last 20, 30%. So if you pay them almost all their margin, they will not come back and finish it. All that punch list stuff that really makes a difference. You think about it, that last little bit makes all the difference in the world. The little punch list stuff that needs to be done. Do not pay them until they're done. Is that helpful?
Yeah.
Okay. Wrong upgrades. You are not buying this property to live in it for yourself. We don't need level 5 granite or whatever. Right? We don't need the most expensive light fixtures. There's a website I used to get a lot of stuff off of. It's called discounthomefurnishings.com. Discounthomefurnishings.com. And they have, faucets like half off. They have everything, and they're actually good. I ended up putting some in my own house, not in the whole house, but they work fine. I had no problem with them when I bought and remodeled my house. They're cheap stuff. It's very, very well priced. So check them out. That helps save some money. Discounthomefurnishings.com. Yeah. And these upgrades, we don't need the highest and the best. Just get enough to get the wow factor. Just the level 1 stuff that just has enough bling to get them to say, wow, this is beautiful. I didn't use the best paint. I honestly didn't care, right? I remodeled stuff the right way. It looked great and it was quality stuff, but I wasn't getting the most expensive cabinetry. I wasn't getting the most expensive light fixtures. I was getting the best deal I could find to make it look as good as possible. The doorknobs and hinges, I wasn't getting the $25 per doorknob. I was getting the $10, $12 per doorknob. Make sense? And you don't think that stuff adds up? It does when you start playing it out. Big time. Big time. Does that make sense? So do the basic upgrades to get it sold. You're gonna live in it, that's different, right? But this is to get it sold, okay? And I'm not saying cut corners either. I'll give you a really good example. And I had lunch with him last week. I had lunch with him once a month. And I've never shared this with him. I don't necessarily go back and share with him, it doesn't matter. You guys know David Chadden is? Okay, you know, he's built a lot of homes, thousands of homes in these surrounding areas. There was a neighborhood, Bethany Green, you can look it up, 735 Bethany Green, Grace Lane, I can't remember if it was Lane or Grace Road. I put this house, I bought it at the courthouse steps for like or something, and sold it for $790 or $805, somewhere in that range, you know, a couple months later. Sounds like a great margin. Yes, I still made money, but here's what happened. In the backyard, there was a little bit of like a sinkhole in there, you know. I was like, oh, no big deal, you know, we'll dig it out. I got enough margin in there, you know, I can fix it. We started digging, okay? I'm not even exaggerating, 20 40-yard containers later. And if you know what a 40-yard container is, that is enormous. Those big roll-off dumpsters, right? They're as wide as this room, right? 20 of those later, and we finally got to the bottom of it. Here's what happened. I had the neighbors come over later, like, yeah, when they were building this house, it was one of the last ones built. They used it as like the pit for the entire neighborhood. We pulled out, like, tires.
Oh, yeah.
Awful, like, all kinds of stuff. And I'm not blaming David. 15 neighborhoods going at once, right? But I knew he built it, you know, and that was allowed back then. They were allowed to do that, you know, so you don't know like what you're gonna come into and what you're gonna, so when you're flipping these, do the right thing. What would a lot of flippers done? Throwing some dirt over it, throwing some sod over it, and be like, done, they won't notice. It'll come back and bite you. It'll come back and bite you. I can't sleep at night if I don't do it the right way. Yes, it cost me a lot, tens of thousands of dollars to get that done, right? But I can go to bed and I can let it do that. That makes sense?
Yeah.
So I'm not saying cut corners on cheap stuff. I'm saying do the right stuff, just be smart. You're flipping the property, you know? The paint I bought, the cheapest paint you could get. I mean, it was bad, you know, but it looked good, you know? They want to change that. Okay, not bulletproofing the transaction. Okay, I talked about the scope of work, bulletproofing that. Let me give you another example of bulletproofing the transaction. This is probably going to run into like part 3 of this class. Okay. So, big mistake I made. There was a property in Ackworth that I bought for like one something, sold it, had 5, 6 offers, well above list price, you know, under contract for like 250, 260, somewhere around there. And the appraiser came in. What do you think happened?
Yeah.
Raise loan. I'm like, I've got 5 other people ready, willing, and able to sign up for a 30-year mortgage to pay for this house, you know, and you're telling me it's not worth that. I'm like, yeah, sorry, you know, okay, how do I fix this? It happened again. And I was like, I'm not dealing with this again. So here's what you do. Find a local, okay, think about all the sales you've had lately, okay? What are some ones that you're like, this is never gonna appraise, and then did appraise? Okay, think about this for a second, okay? Now, do you have that appraiser's name and phone number?
Yeah.
Probably, okay? So here's what you do, right? And this is like doing their homework for them. Every time I got the property finished, it was completely done being remodeled, I would then call a very optimistic appraiser, okay? I say, hey, I need you to come here and do an appraisal on this property for me. I just finished the remodel. I'm gonna give you a list of everything that was done, right? I need you to come to do the appraisal. Here's the reality of how these appraisals work. I remember one of these properties that came in low. I came to the property and I wanted to meet the appraiser there. This is before I started doing the pre-listing appraisal, right? And he came on his motorcycle from Conyer, like the Mohawk motor, you know, helmet. I was like, how do you even get assigned here? Because they're supposed to only work a radius. He's working the system in some manner. And it was with Wells Fargo, nothing against Wells Fargo, but they, a lot of the big banks, anybody who's mortgages, they use a company called Rells, okay? And they're appraisal management companies. So it's like the buyer's paying, let's say $500 or $600 for an appraisal. That appraiser's only getting like half of that. So they're gonna make ends meet. They can't spend 4 hours trying to make your number work. Does that make sense? They want to get in, get out, and appraise as many properties as they can in a day. However, when you hire the appraiser, how much of that money are they getting?
100%.
100% of it. And there's not this deadline where they have to get it in by a month. So you're allowed to provide data to appraisers. So you can say, hey, here are 3 or 4 comps that support, you know, what I'm looking to list the property at. I know you have to follow the same rules and guidelines, it has to be compliant, I get it. And here's the list of comps, okay? Then type up this is really important, type up every upgrade you did, okay? Every upgrade you did. Put the retail price next to it. Don't put what you pay, because if you negotiated a great deal, 50% off paint, 30% off flooring or whatever else, just because you got that doesn't mean everybody else would. And I put on there list of upgrades just completed in the home, full kitchen remodel, all new cabinets, granite countertops, all new light fixtures. I put retail price next to it, $63,000. I might have paid 40 for it, but I put in the retail price $63,000, right? And I knew what my discount was. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Then I give them this list and it shows $138,000 worth of remodeling on retail price on it. I didn't pay 138 remodeling, but that would be the retail if just some Joe Schmo went out there to do it. Does that make sense? So here's what I would do. Call the optimistic appraiser, meet them at the property, hand them the list of recent upgrades, hand them the comps that support what I'm looking for. Now they're getting the full amounts. They're gonna spend some time running the numbers and seeing what comes up. Now they give me this appraisal, okay? Now, everybody knows that you're the buyer's appraiser. They can't use your appraisal, right? They can't just say, oh, it's done. They still have to go by and do their own numbers. So here's what I did. I printed up a copy of it and I left it on the kitchen table. I had a big stand in front of it that said, attention appraiser with a big arrow and had the appraisal telling me. And then next to it, I had the list of upgrades that were just completed on this property along with retail prices. So I had those things sitting right there in front of them on the kitchen table. Now, they're gonna come in and they're gonna see it, they're gonna say, oh, go ahead. Okay, you should do my homework for me.
Right.
They're gonna go back and now, remember, they have to follow the same guidelines. They're gonna have to double check that they're actual real sales that happen, but it saves them 3 or 4 hours. That is worth its weight in stinking gold. Like I did not have another appraisal issue after doing that, ever, right? Ever after doing that. I would also, when it went under contract in the MLS, I would remove showing time from it and I'd say appointment only. So the appraiser, I didn't actually take the lockbox off. I had to delete that part that says the lockbox is on there, right? Then they would call me. So that, because sometimes the appraisers are sneaky. They'll go in there without telling me, right? So I took off the thing that says the lockbox was there, right? And I took off the showing time, said appointment only. They had to call me. That way when the appraiser called me, I said, yes, happy to meet you out there. I'm gonna get you in the home and I have some information that might help you. A list of upgrades that were just on the property and some other information that you might like to know. Would it be okay if I send that to you? You're allowed to provide data. Make sense? Send the data. Is that helpful?
Yes.
That will help, that will save. By the way, this will also work on the listing side. If you have one that you're a little concerned, might not appraise, same thing. Make sense? Okay. I have kind of chasing the squirrel here with listings that I thought might have trouble appraising. I call that same appraiser, have them do a pre-listing appraisal. I told the seller that I would reimburse them the cost of the appraisal at closing or half of it. I can say half of it. So I'll reimburse you for half the price of this listing appraisal at closing. That way I'm not paying for it up front, you know what I mean? But I explained this to them. It's worth its weight in gold. It absolutely is. Also for you in negotiations, if you have another agent that puts in a low offer, you can send over before you go under contract. You can send over a legitimate appraisal. Say, I just had it appraised. Here's what it's worth. They can't, an agent can't argue that appraisal that was just done 2 weeks ago by a certified residential appraiser. It's a very hard argument for them to win. Yes.
And you do this for all you were
Not all. All the flips, yes, but not all this. Yeah, just one that was worried might not appraise. Good question. Is that helpful? Okay. Bonus, this is the one I mentioned earlier. Oh, I wish I would have kept more. Like this is the one I look back at, the prices that I paid. Like, who knows Cow Lake Parkway? Is kind of a nice area, right? There's a neighborhood called Deer Run. And if you go in, like, you're going up that hill and you turn into Deer Run, there's a house on the left, right across from the clubhouse, the pool. I bought it for $138,000. You have any idea where that house is worth right now? Like, I didn't want to look at it. I stopped looking once it crested like 500 or 600. You know, like it makes me sick to my stomach. I wish I would have kept a lot more of it. I was just chasing that quick hit. You know what I mean? So let's go back to one of these examples. If you probably don't want to have $1 million property as a rental property, right? Here's the challenge you're going to run into, and we're going to talk about this in a second. A lot of these real estate investment trusts are going to, courthouse steps or MLS or whatever. They're paying at or more than the property's worth after being fixed up, so there's not any margins. They have a buy box though. They don't buy after, let's say, $500,000 or $600,000 because they don't make sense to keep as rentals, right? So you have less competition in the higher end stuff. So you might find some better stuff where you make more money in the higher end stuff. Use that to fund your long-term investments. That might be one of the ways that you find some properties. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Less competition when the air is a little thinner. Okay? Okay. All right. Finding inventory. I'll come back to that, I'll tell you that for a second. All right, finding inventory. Okay, 6 days before foreclosure. This is what this looks like. Okay. I know it's hard to read, so I'm walking through it. Okay, and this is being recorded, so you can look at it there. Okay. Payment default. So borrower has missed at least one payment, the lender sends them a notice. Hey, you're behind on your mortgage, you need to get current, right? Got follow me? Okay. All right. Next up, they get a notice of default. So after 90 days of being behind on their mortgage, they get a notice of default of missed payment. So 3 months, now they get a notice of default. The loan is handed over to the lender's foreclosure department, their loss mitigation department is what it's called. And the borrower is informed that the notice will be recorded. Okay, now the lender typically gives another 90 days to settle the payments and reinstate the loan. So really, this person has a month, it's, what is that? Yeah, 7 months, like the month where they get notified, now you're behind, and then, it's 6 months, it's 90 days. Then they could actually file for foreclosure. Remember at the, every single closing you have, they always say it fast. They say, if you miss your payments, it says, how they word it. The first Tuesday of every month, they do the courthouse step auctions, right? That's what this is. Oh, they say, if you miss your payments, your property will be advertised in the paper for 4 consecutive Tuesdays prior to the first Tuesday of the month. That's what they say in the closing statement. They say it really fast, the 4 consecutive Tuesdays prior to the first Tuesday of the month, right? It actually does go in a physical paper. Not many people read the paper anymore, so there's digital versions of where you can find these lists. Okay, so this is what it looks like. Notice of default. Now this person's 90 days behind. They're getting a notice of default. They're like, hey, this is now coming from an attorney. If you don't get caught up, the property's gonna get foreclosed. Okay. So notice of upcoming foreclosure. The loan is not paid up to date within 90 days of that notice of default. The bank notifies the borrower that they're going to start advertising for 4 consecutive weeks prior to the first Tuesday of the following month. The home will be going to auction at courthouse steps to be sold to the highest bidder. Got follow up so far?
Yeah.
That's what this looks like. Okay. So really, this is where we can find out what's going on. It's not really up until the notice of default where we really this step where we start to get the notice. You can find out before here. Okay, but this is really where you want to find out. Number 2. By the time it gets to number 3, everybody knows about it. Okay, well, a lot more people know about it. You guys follow it so far? I'll show you how to get those lists and then how to tactfully reach out to people. It's really a helpful manner. Then it goes to the foreclosure auction. Okay, and raise your hand if you've been to the courthouse steps before. Okay, good. I'm talking to a room where most people get in there. Here's what ends up happening. It's auctioned off to the highest bidder at the courthouse steps. Up until probably six or 7 years ago, auction.com wasn't even a thing, until probably 7 years ago. And this is what it would look like. Somebody with a baseball cap, right, and blue jeans will be walking up the courthouse steps, like where everybody else is walking in. Then they just turn around and they go, landlord, second district, first district, fourth county. Everyone's like, whoa, you're reading my. And they won't stop talking, right? And they're just reading off the property. They might have like 3 or 4 they're reading off. Some of the attorneys that have it on clipboard, and while they're talking, they lift it up, you can see the property. You guys like peek over their shoulder and be like, is that the property that I'm looking for? It was a hot mess, it was terrible, right? So what changed is auction.com came and they started calling these attorneys that have these properties about to go to the courthouse steps. They said, let us cry them out for you. And the way we do it, we get more engagement from everybody that's there and get them probably to bid a little higher than they might have if you just did it the way you've been normally doing it. Because typically that attorney, they don't really enjoy, they call it crying out the property, right? They're not physically crying, I feel bad that people are getting foreclosed on, they're probably crying, right? That's awful. I'll show you a way to get past that and help those people in a second. So, so auction.com starts crying out the properties. They do it the right way. You show up, on the day of the auction, and you actually go to the, usually it's to the right, and you check in. And you actually register your funds, you show them you have proof of funds, they give you a list of all the properties that are being called out, they have a board set up and it shows you in order what are being called out. And then you get this bid number, now they're calling out, like that's what's supposed to be done. But during that same time, they don't get all the properties. There's a bunch of other ones that are doing the courthouse steps, just like I just told you. And I'll show you all the companies in a second, how you get a list ahead of time, okay? So let's say that the property doesn't get, here's one bad thing about auction.com. You'll get excited. Like auction.com, they do get people, pumped up about it. It says starting bid price, $89,000. Who's ever bought something on eBay? Raise your hand if you bought something on eBay, right? Okay, what do they usually have? It might be a starting price of $89,000, but what does eBay usually have?
An immediate price.
They have a reserve, right? They have a reserve, like they'll do it up to case. So here's what happens. You'll hear like 89,000, and say 110, you're like 115, and spends like 130, you're like 135, and they say go 135 going once, 135 going twice. And then you're like, oh, that's get it, yes. And they say, we have a reserve bid from the lender for $238,000. And you're like, oh, come on, you know, and maybe that price is more than what the property is actually worth. You see what I mean? So remember, the lender doesn't own the home. The homeowner owns the home. So in that, the lender owns the loan. Remember, it's called REO when banks get the properties back. You know what that stands for? Real estate owned. It's a balance sheet. Assets, right, and liabilities. It goes in the liability side of the balance sheet. Make sense? They don't want to own homes. They want to own loans. Make sense? Okay. So if it doesn't sell the courthouse step because it's worth the reserve bid is too high. Reserve bid is just how much they owe them a loan, plus attorney's fees, plus past due stuff. And if somebody did an FHA loan, they put 3.5% down, and they use their home as a piggy bank 3 or 4 times, and you tap on attorney's fees, a lot of them they owe more than what it's worth, right? Right now, there's so many loans with so much equity, this is a little more rare, but they're still there. I'll show you one in a second, okay? So now it goes back to the bank. The bank owns this. There's gonna be a time frame from when it goes, you might hit the courthouse steps the first Tuesday of next month, wherever that is, June 4th, 5th, whatever that is, you might be there on that day. And then it goes back to the bank, and maybe you want to buy it. You know, you're like, what, it still went for a good price, I might still buy it. The banks, once they own it, they're allowed to sell it for cheaper. But they have to do it at whatever that loss amount is. Now, this doesn't happen, let me forget the term, let me remember the term, I have it later in the slides. They don't do this, but they can actually go back to the people that get foreclosed on and garnish their wages. Did you know that? For the loss. That's why they can't sell it for less than what's owed on it at the courthouse stuff. Does that make sense? This is gonna be pretty well. It'll be up here in a minute, but yes.
You're saying the bank always has that reserve bid on every one?
They do. Yeah, every single one.
So you'll never just steal one for like.
No, you will. You will. There will be some times where for some reason, somebody abandoned a property or something happened, and I don't understand why, but some of them, there is a huge equity position in, and they still go to the courthouse steps. Yep, I'll explain the story here in a second, you guys will appreciate it. So if it goes back to the bank owned, and they take them 3, 4, 5 months before you actually see it on the open market again. The last one, I know it's hard to see that thing, and where it says eviction, the lender evicts the homeowner, giving them, there's something called cash for keys. This is how I kind of got really knowledgeable on this subject. I worked for a company called First Mortgage Strategy Group. I didn't work for them, I was their agent that listed their properties. They would call me, and this is a real thing. Groups can buy mortgages that are in default for pennies on the dollar, right? And they'll buy like a whole they might have a package for the Southeast region where they buy, $5 million worth of loans that are in default. A lot of those people will get current again, right? And they'll stay in their homes. That First Mortgage Strategy Group would continue to service the loan. But a certain percentage of them wouldn't. They would call me. They'd say, hey, Aubrey, we've got 10, they're probably going to the courthouse steps here next month. We need you to do a drive-by on the property to tell me what do they look like and what are you thinking they might be done to them, Like, okay, sure. So I drive by the homes you can't go in, sometimes people live there, sometimes they don't. I would take a couple pictures, send it back to them. A handful of them, they would call me and say, hey, courthouse steps just happened. We have 3 that we want you to list, and one of them still has somebody in it. And that's like the most heartbreaking thing to do. But this company was nice about it. I would show up at the courthouse, at the person's door. This is like the hardest thing to do. If I look back at what I did not enjoy, it was this, okay? But I would show up and I say, hey, guys, I'm so sorry. You probably know your home went to the courthouse steps yesterday. And a company that I'm affiliated with, First Mortgage Strategy Group, bought the home. And they're actually want to do something really nice for you. They want to do something called cash for keys. And what they want to do is give you $4,000 in exchange for a clean house. And they'll give you another month from now, But what they don't want to do is go down the eviction path and do all that. They'd rather give you some money to help you get your feet back underneath you, give you a little cash to get started again, so you can go rent a place. And sometimes they would negotiate, like they would cry, they would, and sometimes can they do 5 or 6 houses? Like, I don't know, I go ask, and I would negotiate for them. Those are the most painful moments. I did not enjoy that. But you'd be surprised how many people were absolutely blown away. They're like, they're gonna pay me
Like that was
Can anybody hear me?
Yes, Nicole, I hear
They
you.
said, okay, they said, Enrique, I just texted Enrique. He said the power went out. They're working on it. So I don't know.
Oh, they couldn't, you're on mute.
It's a recording.
Oh, and recorded, yes. Thank you so much. Girl.
Give her a book, give her a book.
It should be, I think it's recording now, because it says pause recording, so we should be good. You're good, I got it, yeah, you're good. So now you have hundreds of names and addresses, what do you do with them, right? So if you went to listsource.com, you bought this list, what do you do now with it, okay? So let's take a look at it. These are the actual letters, I scanned these in the other day, these are actually ones that I actually sent, okay? So it says, I bought that one, I didn't get this one, I did buy Forest Way, yeah, that's what I bought. And this is letter 3B1, you know, so, and I'll show you some other examples, this was, I don't know which letter this was. But it says, dear John, I thought I'd circle the wagons one more time about buying 217 Forest Way, as I'm looking to buy a house in the Woodstock area. I just need a few minutes of your time to know whether or not you're interested or not. I'd like to pay you cash for property and close in less than 30 days. Yeah, wouldn't it be nice to avoid cost showings, delays, and selling to buyers need a bank loan? Talking about the house and saving money can't hurt. Please give me a call. Should I mention that while I'm a licensed agent, I'm looking to buy for myself, not list? Why did I put that in there? It's the law. It's the law. You have to disclose that you're an agent. You see what I mean? That's why. And being open with you, one of the first, I could get myself in trouble, one of the first batch of letters he sent out, I noticed he didn't say that. I was like, hey man, please fix this. I'm gonna get in trouble. This was a long time ago, so maybe we'll pass the statute now, you know, but he fixed it, you know? So you do have to disclose in there. And if you look at this, that looks like it's handwritten. You can almost see like the smudge, you know, on the screen. The envelope was that, like it looks like my handwriting, right? So it's enough to get open. And the phone number was I think it was a Google Voice number, is what I used. You guys know you get Google Voice for free. If you have Google, which all of us have Google, you get Google Voice for free, right? You get one number, but you get Google Voice number for free. And what the message says that, hey, you must have received one of my letters about potentially buying your house. Yes, I'm definitely interested. You know, please leave your name and number at the beep if you'd like me to meet with you. I'm happy to take you off the list if you don't want to get any more of the letters. You know, thanks so much. Talk to you soon. Then, because I don't want people calling my cell phone, take you off the list, you know? So I just did the Google Voice number and they call. So this company set up a spreadsheet for me. So like every month they'd say, here's the 1,000 letters we sent out. This is already pre-filled with all the names. We'll continue to send letter 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 unless you remove them from this list. So if somebody called me, they're like, hey, I'm not interested in selling, you just take me off your list. I would delete them off that list. Or if they called me and said, hey, let's talk, like this guy did, right? I'd say, great, I would take them off that list. And then whoever's left on there, they continue to get the series of letters until they've got all the letters. Then we do another round with a different group. You see what I mean? And there's so many you will not run out of people. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what the letters we got. Here's what Brett did, Brett Tanner.
Yeah.
And I'll send these out so you guys can see them a little better. But these are postcards. He actually took the Google. This is a lot more legwork, but I think he paid like a VA or something to do it. Or they took a picture of from Google, maybe Google Streets or something, like of the actual house, like their house. So this person's getting a picture, is this your property? And it is, you know, I want to buy it, you know, text this number to this number to see our instant cash offer. You see what I mean? A little more work. I haven't done it like that. I haven't done it like that, but that's pretty cool. I'm always open to new ideas, you know? And he gave the name of the company that he did it with. I'll see if I can find it in my notes. I have it in my notes. Make sense? Pretty neat, right? Got it? Okay. Okay, notice the default list. So we just talked about absentee owners and equity owners. Those are not in trouble. They're not in financial trouble, right? Oh, I didn't finish the story. So I met this lady at the house. She called me. She's like, yes, I want to sell my property. I told she was an older lady. And I went to the house and her name, I think it was Betty, this is a few years ago. And I said, Betty, I'm an investor. I was like, and I said, if you put a little money in this house, you know, you can get a lot more money for it. Like, these are my numbers. Yes, I'll pay cash. We can close in a couple weeks, no problem. I was like, but I couldn't sleep at night if I didn't tell you, if you put a little money in this, you can get a lot more for it, you know? And she's like, obviously, I can't really deal with it. She's like, it's been a rental property for 30 years. She's like, they've messed up everything in this house and need to do everything. She's like, I don't feel like messing with it. She's like, if I could take it, if I didn't have to lift a finger, I could get cash for it in 2 weeks, I'd take it. And so I offered her like 105. She's like, can you do 115? I was like, sure. You know, gave her 115. She was happy, you know, and then I went in there, I put like 100 grand in it because it was torn up, you know, but then sold it for almost $300,000. You know, do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So it worked out. So don't prejudge what people will hit the easy button sometimes. They want that easy button. Yes.
So did you do this at the beginning or did you wait till you had cash from other properties before you started?
Good question. Okay, so capital, we're kind of getting into raising capital, yes. Hold that thought. We're gonna get there. I think it made more sense to show it together. That is
Okay.
absolutely a slide on here. We'll talk about that.
Okay.
Okay, notice of default list, same thing, listsource.com, you get these notice of default lists to see who, remember that was after 90 days, they get these notice of default, okay? But that's before it's getting to the 4 weeks prior to the first Tuesday of the month. So you're catching it early enough on. By the time it shows up in Realist that says upcoming foreclosure, it's within that 4-week window, okay? This will catch it a little bit sooner than that. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so listsource.com, notice of default list, you get that list on here. Okay, so foreclosure prospects, it tells you what's happening, pre-foreclosure initiate. This is what I was talking about. Default, pre-foreclosure initiated. The legal document has been officially filed recognizing that a borrower is behind on payments. That's that 90-day notice of default. This one, pending auction sale, the one that's in 4 weeks. They mix them together, right? But some of them are gonna be further upstream than others. Make sense? You really want these. You might go to just ask for those. That would be ideal, okay? Okay, all right, now, what's a tactful way to reach out to them? Good, yes, you could, and you gotta be so careful with them on how you do this. Come from a heart of contribution, and this is the way I always did it. I said, I had, some letters that I sent them, and I would go by sometimes, and the letter said something like, if you're facing foreclosure, I want you to know that foreclosure is not your only option. You know, you actually have 3 options. And I'm a real estate agent, you know, and at the time I was doing this to get listings, right? But I said, yes, you're a real estate agent, but I'm not just looking to buy or list your home. You have 2 other ways that you could potentially stay in the home and not have to get foreclosed on, okay? Do you guys know what those are?
Yes, you bought it and they don't do it.
Okay, that could be one, yeah, I like that. What would be a way they could stay in and still in the home? Who's been in this business long enough to maybe have done these?
You can modify their note.
Loan modification. So there's something called a loan modification, and a lot of people don't know this, you know, and this is where you actually physically are. What do you get if they modify their home and stay in it? Nothing, but you get to lay your head down and nice and help somebody. And when you do that, they love you for it, and they'll say, what can I do to help you? And you say, all I ask is you come across somebody that needs to buy or sell a home, please think of me, you know, they got to come get you involved. They become your cheerleaders. You help somebody avoid foreclosure, they will become your cheerleaders. That makes sense? So loan modification, you don't actually do it, but you can give them some advice on how to get to the loan, the loss mitigation department, talk to them about a loan modification and get all that taken care of. So, yeah. Any comments on that? Yeah, okay, so that'd be one of them. But yeah, just don't go knocking the door and say, hey, I know you're getting foreclosed on, you should just sell it to me. So option 1 is loan modification. You could do loan modification, stay in the home, get your payment adjusted. At some point, you'll have to get caught back up or whatever else, depends on the terms of the loan mod, or you could do a loan mod. The second one is you could sell the home. If you have enough equity in the home, you could sell the home to potentially an investor who might rent it back to you, like Brody said. And the last option is foreclose. That's the absolute last option I want you to go with. Let's avoid that one, right? Let's talk about these other 2. Okay. Okay, but this is what it looks like in the courthouse steps. That's what I'm saying. Like this is like I've been to Fulton County, I bought houses in Cherokee County, Cobb County, Forsyth County. Those are probably the 3 that I went to the most often. And how to pick which one to go to, which one had the most properties that I was interested in. That's what I went to. So that's what the tents look like when you sign up. You literally walk up to these people in greens, and you have to have your cashier's checks. I'll talk about it in a second, but you walk up, you see them typing their name and information in there. The person that works with the green shirt, they're giving them their BIP number, whatever else, so they're able to log in. And this is an example, like look at the left auction.com, probably the green one. But there'll be people that walk up trying to call properties off while you're you might be bidding on one with auction.com, and 5 feet over here, there's somebody else calling another property off that you're interested in. You're jumping back and forth, bidding between the 2. Yeah.
Now you said you drove by the houses, but not sure the inside isn't falling apart.
You know, really good question. And if you step into the property, you're trespassing. And I'm not gonna say that I didn't, if I can tell them that it's vacant, I might have peeked in the window or whatever else, but you have to build a larger margin into the I had one, you look it up, 8390 Setney Chase Drive, which is over there by sitting on the river you know, yeah, you drove it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did that one. I bought that to buy something,
Uh-huh.
right? It also needed like $300,000 worth of work,
Sure.
Like they had mold all through the basement,
Right.
like bad mold. There was a retaining wall that was like 50, 60 feet wide, on the back end of the property, because it literally backed up the Chattahoochee River, like it was on the Chattahoochee River, and it had this retaining wall, the whole retaining wall had to be replaced, you know? So if you ever ask me for a property I lost money on, it was that one, right? It was that one. Because, and I learned, like at the courthouse steps, I don't want to buy a really big property at the courthouse steps, because the mistakes you make are that much bigger, right? So, I didn't lose a lot on that one, you know, I think I lost, I say not a lot, probably 40, you know, on it, but I've done a ton of other that years to more than made up for it. That would be one example of one that I lost money on. There was only two that I lost money on, and that was the big road too. So, yeah. Okay. So what is it? Okay, how's it really work? Okay, so this is what happens. You've gone to listsource.com. I'm gonna show you some other ways to identify some properties in a second. Actually, the next slide. But you go to the courthouse auction, they don't do loan there. You actually have to go with cashier's check. So let's say you only wanted to buy one property, you had the address you wanted to buy, and you're like, my max bid price is $300,000. Okay, let's say it was gonna sell for $450 when it was remodeled, ready to go. So that 300, the most I'll go for it. Starting bid price, you know, ends up being, you know, $200,000, right? And let's say it bids up and it bids up and it goes for $257,000. Okay, if you only brought one cashier's check for $300,000, they don't give you change there. They're not handing the $43,000 back to you. Okay, that money's gonna be tied up for 30 days, 3 weeks, 2 weeks until they give you the money back. You might need that cash to remodel the property, right? So here's what you do, right? You get different denominations of cashier's checks. So I might have, you know, 200, I know some go for at least 200. So I might have a $200,000 cashier's check. And then I might have, you know, a 50, and then a 25, and a 25, or 10, or 5, right? I always had different denominations of checks to get as close as possible to that amount. And then whatever I didn't use, I would just go back to the bank, you flip the check over, say not used for intended purposes, they would re-put it, they put it back in their account. Does that make sense?
So they gave you like $1 million worth of money.
Good question. Where'd the money come from? So in the beginning, right, I had, here, I'll give you a couple of examples, right? In the beginning, I had to borrow money from someone that trusted me enough to lend me the money. Here's how I got that trust. Very easy, right? Here's how I got that trust. I went to an attorney. I paid $2,000 to have a promissory note and a, hang on, what's the other one? Promissory note, and I forget the other name, but the 2 document security. So I had to get them to draw both of those up. So they drew both of those up. And what it was a past client. It was a heart surgeon. I went to him and I said, and he had a lot of money, but he wasn't getting great return. And I was like, hey, if I had a property that was worth substantially more than I was buying it for, right? And I was able to put you in the primary position, you know, of being the lien holder on the property, and I was able to pay you a much better return than you're getting elsewhere right now. Would you be interested in possibly partnering with me on one? He's like, yeah, tell me more. I was like, I'm not looking for 2 cooks in the kitchen. I don't need somebody to tell me what color paint to choose and what upgrades to use. What I want is somebody that just likes to sit back and get a check. If you like to sit back and get a check. And if I defaulted, you'll be able to see the home first. If I defaulted, you know, you have 6 figures of equity. Would that be okay? He's like, yeah, sure. Like, okay, great. You know, we did that, right? And I gave them at the time, I don't know if this is still work right now, 10%, you know, interest, but it was over the course of the year, right? So let's say he lent me, you know, $300,000, you know, 10% interest would be 30 grand, divide that by 12 months and how much I owe, you know, at the end of it. So if I kept it for 3 months, he might get whatever that amount is, you know, 9 grand, you know, whatever it is, 8 grand. Anyway, so, you follow it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it works. Yeah, makes sense? Answer your question? That's how it worked until I had enough where I didn't have to do that anymore, right? Now I have enough to do it on my own. Then I physically did have enough in my account, go to my bank, say, hey, I'm going to courthouse steps tomorrow. I need cashier's checks. And I went, you can negotiate with, most of the banks will charge you for cashier's check. But if you go to a bank and say, hey, I'm gonna be doing this every month, I'm willing to hold this amount of money with you, but you cannot charge me per check. They will not do it. They'll say, okay, sure. They'll say, no problem. They actually will not charge you that cashier check money. That's negotiable. I've done it at Chase, I've done it at Wells Fargo, I've done it at, not Bank of America. Yeah, I mean, all those big Truist now. You do that? Yeah. Yeah, because I was with Suntrust a long time ago too. Makes sense? That's how that works. That would be a good time to share the biggest mistake I ever made. Would you guys like to hear it? Okay, all right. This is me being really vulnerable with you. I made money on every property except for 2, right? It was that one I told you, 8390 set in HH. You can look it up. What was the other one? It wasn't much. I can't remember what the other one was. Here's a mistake I made. I had enough money to do after a certain period of time to do these on my own, right? And I had a contractor that came to me and said, hey, let's do these together. I think I shared this story last time. Let's do these together. I was like, well, what would that look like? He's like, well, I'll go in with you, I'll give you some money, and we'll split the profits. I was like, well, what do you have? And he had about the same amount of money that I did. I was like, well, that doesn't make any sense. I was like, I'm gonna do twice the work and make the same amount of money. He's like, well, would you get a discount? He's one of the contractors. He's like, would you get a discount on some of the remodeling? Like, okay, so I save an extra $5,000 for the property, you know, like to give up to do twice the amount of work. I'm like, no, I'm okay. You know, I'll still keep using you, but no. He came back to me like a month later. He's like, hey, I have a healthy 7-figure amount of money now. I'm like, wow, okay, now we're talking, you know, a lot of money. And I was like, what does it look like? He's like, same thing, you can pick out everything else, help you with a couple things here and there, and just split profits. I'm like, okay. So we partnered, and this was in probably 2013, right around there, you know, ish. I'd already been doing it for a little while, and I already did a lot for a while. And he came to me about 2 months later or so ish. And he's like, hey, I've got another business opportunity. He's like, you can keep the capital, but he's like, you have to pay me every single month that return, that 10% return. And we're talking millions of dollars. That's a lot of money to commit to paying every month. Well, at the time, everything was going great. You know, I was picking up plenty of properties, making 40, 50, 60, 80 grand, you know, per property. Everything was going fine. Okay. I was like, okay, sure, we can do that. So we put together an agreement, and I was agreeing to pay him that every month. Plus, you have to float all the other costs that I had, insurance and all that other stuff, right? And about 3 or 4 months later, after we did this deal, that's when all the real estate investment trusts started coming down. You guys familiar with them, Blackstone and all that, right? 2013, 2014 is when they came to town. And I would go to the courthouse steps to buy properties, to buy 10. How many would I leave with? 0, maybe 1. I was like, that's okay, okay, I'll get it next month. I'll get it next month, I'll get it next month. You know, and you could forget mine and MLS by that time. Like they were just gone, right? So I get them next month. And so next month I would go, right? And I'm trying to buy 10, 15 properties. And I get 0 or 1. I was like, that's okay. Next month. After a certain period of time, it didn't take, I mean, maybe a year, you know, less than a year. I was like, I'm $300,000 in debt, not because I didn't make money. Oh, this works. Like, it's because I committed to paying tens of thousands of dollars every single month, no matter what. What do you think my quality of sleep was like? It was awful. And I grew up in a household where like my parents fought over money, ultimately got divorced. I made a promise to my wife who was myself that I would never do that. And here I was causing stress in our relationship over finances, right? And I was like, something has to change. Something has to change, right? So the mistake, I'll finish the story in a second. But the mistake I made, my advice to you, I would rather pay somebody more money when it sells than committing to an amount of money every single month. In other words, I only want to borrow what I need, and I only want to pay for it when it closes.
Right.
I might give them a little bit of, you know, like closing costs, but fine, and you can, and that's when you can get somebody like the doctor or past flash. Yeah, it's fine, as long as there's equity in the home, and you'll pay me when it sells, no problem. Does that make sense? Okay. Fast forward, that decision that I made was I got approached. How do we get here? I got approached in a few years back, probably 5 or 6 years ago, actually by Melba. And she was like, she'd been asking me a bunch, like, you should consider being a team leader. And during this whole time, my sales team, production team was doing great. They were making great money. Like it was still profitable, but I wasn't the one selling the property. And so it wasn't enough to sustain my lifestyle doing that. Like if I was gonna do it, I had to go back into sales. So my decision was, do I go back into sales and sell properties every day, you know, or do I step into a potential leadership role? And I stepped into leadership. And right now, debt's completely gone. If you would have told me what my passive income is today, 5 years ago, I would have said you're crazy. Now it took a lot of work, and being in this role has put me in rooms I never thought I would be in. I love, you would agree with this, Mike, the rooms we get put in are phenomenal. And I remember calling Mike, you know, when I got completely debt free and telling him how great life is. Who's the one that really convinced me to step in the role? I did, you know. So what I'm sharing with you, every bit of this works. I didn't lose money on flips. Where I lost money was making a bad decision on making a payment to somebody every single month. So when I say don't use your home as a you know, cash ATM, I mean it. Like don't do that because now you've committed to making this payment every single month. Not only that, you don't have the capital anymore. You see what I mean? It's gone. So how did I get? Why do I wish I would have kept more rentals? The agreement we had with that contractor, I could have said, sorry, it didn't work out. I could have filed like bankruptcy or something like that, but I wouldn't be able to sleep at night doing that. So what did I do? I sold every rental I had. I sold the house, my first home that I ever bought. I sold the home that I brought my first kid home to. I sold the home that my wife and I got married, we got moved in together. I sold a handful of other properties to make the debt square, you know? I didn't have attorneys telling me like, you don't need to do this. I'm like, yes, I do, because it's the right thing to do. This person put their money with me, and I promised them that I would pay them every penny of what I promised them, and I'm gonna live up to that. So I did that. You see what I mean? So I wish I would get more of them, you know, I really do, you know, so I'm in the process of rebuilding. I'm doing the same stuff right now. I'm doing the same things all over again, right? It's working right now. And there are properties out there right now every single week. So I want you to look at this, learning from the mistakes I made, right? And that's the one mistake. I'll look at that big one, that's it. That's it. Just don't make payments and commit to that every single month. Fair enough?
Yeah.
So we're not looking to buy. So I understand single family residences, so I wouldn't buy single family, like Mark Ellsworth, really good with like a commercial. I don't know, but what I would do is I'd partner with somebody. I'd say, let's just split it, you know, I'll do all the legwork, I'll do all the grunt work, you tell me what you're looking for, I'll go find it, right? Really for me, I'd buy it for $1 million, you know, but if it's $1 million property, what I'm gonna do, it's not gonna be a courthouse steps one. It's gonna be one that I'm gonna be able to inspect, you know, and look at in depth and make sure everything is ready to go. I'll absolutely still buy properties $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 for courthouse steps, because the margin for error, as long as I leave 6 figures of margin, we're okay. Does that make sense? Yeah. By the way, this would be a good time to show you, we did this a little bit. Oh, man, we're already past time. Yeah, oops. Let me show you 2 more things that I want you to leave with a couple of the parts. Okay, we talked about this. Okay, I want to show this to you. I'm going to go through this part kind of fast, but it's not like things you can't come back and look at later. This isn't stuff you really need to absorb quickly. It's more of an overview. These are the sites you can go to find some of these properties. Do you see that first one, wordthepublicnotice.com? Okay, I want to show you what that looks like. Take a look at this. So, this is Equity Depot, this is like a second one. This is a really cool site. This one will do the legwork for you, equitydepot.com. What does this do? You click the area you want. I know you can't see it, but this physically tells you the address of the property, the owner's name, the estimated value of the property, the loan amount date, like when they bought it and financed it, what kind of loan it was. So you could estimate, you could calculate up. If you know when they bought it and how much they financed, you can just Google what were interest rates on 4/27/2006 on a you know FHA loan, right? It'll tell you. Now you can figure out about what they owe on it, add on $10,000 or $15,000. Now you know what about the reserve amount's going to be. Does that make sense? Okay. This gives you that information. It says who the bank is too. Property information. So it gives you like estimated net profit. You actually can do calculators in this site, and it'll give you what the net profit is. Really cool site. Really, they do some stuff for free, and they have other stuff that's paid for. So it's like if you wanted Metro Atlanta, the basic plan is $69 a month, right? I don't know this company, I don't think if you use them, right? So, or you could do 6 months, you save a little bit of money. If you wanted just one county, like Fulton or something, you know, that'd be like $29, right? That's different options. Make sense? Okay, here's the way that I always did it. It takes a little bit more work, but this is GeorgiaPublicNotice.com. So if you go here, remember I said they advertise for 4 consecutive weeks prior to the first Tuesday of the month. This is where it goes. So if you type in the search box, first Tuesday, June 2023, and then what county you want, let's say this, I did Forsyth County as an example for this one, it's then going to pop up with everything that you want. So I just took the second one down, Forsyth County. I clicked on this one. What does that look like? It says this person got a loan with Home Bank back in January of 2005. Okay, they financed $126,750, and it's going to be going to the courthouse steps auction on March 7th, 2023. The property address is 1318 Pilgrim Lake Drive in Cumming, Georgia. Who's holding this? Boggs Legal Group, LLP. That's the person that's processing the foreclosure. They will not tell you anything about the property. However, they can't legally. They do have sites that give you some information that they can share. So I went to their website, Boggs Legal Network. I clicked agree. And these are the properties that were going to the courthouse stuff in Forsyth County, and then that they were doing, just they were doing it, right? So they had a handful in Forsyth County, and one of them was 1318 Pilgrim Lake Drive. But if you notice, auction company, auction.com. You notice how like this one says none? That's because that means they're calling it off. You see what I mean? So it tells you where you can go to get some more information. It's like, okay, let's go over to auction.com. So now I'm at auction.com, I found it, 1318 Pilgrim Lake Drive, estimated resale value, 357. How much did they finance?
Yeah, 126, something.
This could be a potentially really good one, right? You see what I mean? And that's back in 2006 that they financed that. So now I went to realist, I said, well, what else happened? Like, what's going on in this property? And this is not accurate, but at least gives you a ballpark idea, you know, what it might be potentially worth, okay? So but basically what I'm looking at is, does their ballpark 357 align with one other ballpark, 263 to 310? Like, maybe, you know, I need to do some more homework on it for sure, okay? And it shows what they bought it for back in 2005. So, I then clicked on it to get more information. This does have purchase title report, so you can get a title report. You can actually get it for free here through GSCCCA. I'll show you that in a second, okay? But I'm gonna walk you through what this looks like. So I then said, all right, let's double check the mortgage stuff. What do they do? It gives you the interest rate on realist. So you know what their interest rate was. So mortgage history, 126,750, that's the most recent mortgage, 5.8% on an FHA loan, okay? All right, so now I'm gonna say, do they have any liens that won't get cleared out? GSCCCA, you can go here, you can start looking in that county to see what else is there. I would not recommend that you do this as your, on your first try. Pay somebody else to do it. That's either, don't mess up. Okay. Don't let the auction.com starting price fool you. They want to get your engagement. They'll start the price, but there's a reserve price. Know how to use amortization charts and add back an attorney fee. So what does this look like? So back in that year, we knew that that's about on par, 5.87. That's exactly what. So you'll see some on realist that won't tell you the interest rate, but you can just Google it. You can find out. So look, if they bought it 18 years ago, do the math, right? What do they approximately owe right now? $77,344. But add that in tens of thousands of dollars in attorney fees, 10, 15, 20 grand, okay? To get to the courthouse stuff. So what would the starting price be of the home? Probably 100 something, you know, probably over 100, but still it's worth probably 300 or so, you know, give or take. So this would be one, in a couple minutes, I'd say, I'm gonna drive by and at least look at it. Is it vacant? You know, how's the outside look? You know, that kind of thing. Does that make sense? That's all I got there. So, anyway, so you can back into, you know, what the balance is in a few different properties. Okay. Okay. Let's pause here, because I went over time. I thought we were gonna get this in two parts. This is the first time I've ever taught this stuff. Is this helpful? Okay, I just wanted to go deeper, like we go to the community wealth and things like that, and they get great information. But I felt like it would be more helpful to go deeper here locally on how to do it. We didn't even get into the rest of the stuff. Okay, so much more stuff. All right, what happens next?
Part three.
Yes, Mike.
Part three, so that's like 3 weeks from today.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, if your schedule will allow.
I'll make a report. So, all right, so, cards, yes. Actually, I'm gonna make this easier. Give me, okay, you have to be ready to raise your hand. Give me, one of the 5 biggest mistakes that people have looking on. Okay,
The wrong ARV.
wrong interview. Okay, what book do you want? Pick one.
Go with Sunday.
Look, okay. This one. Okay. Okay, hang on, I can see everybody. Okay, all right, same question, give me another one. Right here.
Underestimating expenses.
Okay, you were pretty much the same time, so which one you want? Gold? You got this? Okay.
Don't have. Yeah.
All right, yours.
That's okay.
Yes. Okay, guys, thank you very much. I'll let you know when the next step is.